This is Sports 225 with Lee Feinswag. Sports 225 with Lee Feinswag is Baton Rouge's longest running and best television show. Who would have believed that?
My best friend, Lee Feinswag, look at the Christmas.
Sports 225 is brought to you by Breck. Remember, it all starts at Breck. Now, your host, Lee Feinswag.
Back in the old days, we said Florida record. Well, we are very fortunate in the sports media to have fun jobs. We get to do a lot of fun things, go to fun places, see fun sporting events. There certainly are plenty of stresses and things that you would want no part of it, especially when people go, oh, I'd love to go along. Could you put me in your suitcase, or you need an assistant? And trust me, when you're calling in a story from like a gas station on a rural road and nobody else is around, or you get locked into a stadium at night, all those things, just as an aside. But one of us in the Baton Rouge sports media gets to do more fun things than anybody else, and that's David Ching from ESPN. And you do, because when we were talking earlier this football season about how you got to do the car wash at ESPN, I always thought that would be like the coolest thing to tag along with. You know, I'm not an ESPN person, so I'll never get to go see that.
Well, you know, it was pretty cool. It was the first time I'd ever been up there for one of these things, and they do them every year. And they do them for any time any celebrity comes up to Bristol. They run them through all the different shows and whatnot.
Did they treat you like a celebrity?
No, and I'm not a celebrity, but it was fun to watch the football coaches who are the celebrities go through that and do all the different shows and actually get to sit down and talk to all of them for about 10 or 15 minutes. And you know, I'd only met about half the coaches in the league before, so getting to sit down and actually meet them and shake hands and talk, it was really interesting, and it was really a lot of fun.
You, we're talking about ESPN headquarters in Bristol, Connecticut, which 40 years ago was nothing but rural farmland, and now is a monstrous complex that has developed its own community around it as well. But ESPN is now tied in with X number of leagues, and they all go at some point, but in your case, it was about the SEC.
Yeah, and I mean, the SEC is probably at this point, especially because the relationship between the SEC network and the conference and ESPN, I think that's probably the number one conference in ESPN's estimation, because it's the biggest moneymaker. And so we do get some probably extra allowances that make our jobs, the people that write for the website and work on TV, a little more fun.
How many people are there like yourself? Like you're in Baton Rouge and you cover LSU and the SEC, and you do some national ESPN stuff too at ESPN.com. ESPN.com. How many guys are there like you in the country?
There are probably a few dozen. I've never really done a head count. I would imagine it's in the 30s or 40s.
Yeah.
There are a few national, and then there's 3 or 4 at all the big conferences.
In the case of this car wash, was it July still? Or
it was mid-July, yeah.
So not long after SEC football media days.
Yeah, the week after.
So all right, so they just bring in all 14 SEC football coaches, and then give me an idea of what their day is like all the places they go.
Yeah, it's two different days, and actually this year it was only 13 coaches because Les Miles didn't come because of the Baton Rouge shooting that had just happened the day before. But they show up. Generally, it's about 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, and some of them do Mike and Mike. The guys that are like Nick Saban or Les or Brett Bielema are the ones that are kind of higher profile personalities. They have a longer agenda. You know, the guy at Missouri, let's say, probably had about 15 different stops. Les probably had closer to 25 on the schedule.
That's a busy day.
Yeah.
I mean, because towards the end of it, you're probably thinking, did I already say that once, or am I? You know, I imagine it would become so rehearsed that it wouldn't even be any good.
Yeah.
Know?
Oh, I would imagine that they probably, and media days is a good training for that. You go stop to stop to stop, and you get asked probably the same questions over and over, and you learn kind of what the company line is and how to repeat it in the most graceful way possible. I would imagine those guys are probably pretty well adjusted to that by this point.
Yeah. Now, at what point in those 25 stops do they get to you? And are you there, for example, in a room with all the other guys, you know, of your job, and they all come in? It's a print room, so to speak.
It was a big studio that wasn't being used for anything. So they had just set up tables, and they had some catering that they would it was kind of the intermediary point where when they were between shows or between stops, they'd come in there and they'd have a sandwich and they'd sit down at the table, and then they'd cycle through the tables where the different writers were sitting. It was like they all moved on about a 20-minute schedule from stop to stop to stop, and I was with some coaches one of the first ones, and some the very last.
Anybody at that thing this year where you were like, wow, this is really good, I got to visit with this guy? Because I'm sure there were a couple where you didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, there were a couple that you just see on TV and I had not met that you fear the worst because they seem pretty dry.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'd say Gus Malzahn, I was a little worried that wasn't going to go anywhere because he doesn't give reporters a lot sometimes.
Yeah.
It wound up, every single one of them wound up being a really good conversation. I'd say having not met Kirby Smart before and having covered Georgia for a long time, that was the one that I really enjoyed because he was very personable, and it was interesting because he hasn't done a lot of local media in Georgia. It was interesting to listen to his perspective on what was going on up there.
Yeah, I had occasion to interview him after they won the national championship game against LSU, and he was very bright. But you brought up an interesting point right there. Hadn't done a lot of local media. You know,
Yeah.
and that's just the way of the world now, isn't it? It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I think he spent so long working with Nick Saban, and I think Saban's methods are what he will copy at Georgia, what he's already copied at Georgia, and a lot of coaches are doing that. And from a media person's perspective, a lot of times it's not conducive to what we want, but it's the way of the world, like you said.
Along the same lines, I'm still waiting for LSU Football Media Day. Oh, wait, never mind. He's David Ching. You can read his stuff at ESPN.com. Is there an ESPN.com /LSU or something like that?
It's SEC blog. I don't know what the HTTP address is.
Okay. SEC blog, David Ching. I'm Lee Feinswag at Sports 225.
Hi, I'm Joe Martin, president of ITI Technical College, and I really encourage you to come out to our 12-acre campus here on Airline Highway in Baton Rouge.
Contact ITI to enroll in our Construction Management Associate and Occupational Studies degree program. Learn to plan, coordinate, budget, and supervise construction projects and collaborate with engineers and architects in the residential, commercial, industrial, and heavy civil construction industry sectors. Call now about this new, exciting career degree. ITI Technical College. Begin your journey to a better life.
All right, we're back on Sports 225. A couple of weeks into the college football season, David Ching is here. He covers LSU and the SEC for ESPN.com. His blog is SEC blog, and he doesn't remember anything more than that. But you do remember that you mentioned Gus Malzahn just before, and of course, he's when they come up with the coaches on the hot seat, he's Auburn's coach, and in theory, one of those coaches. And LSU goes to Auburn.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, and I think Les Miles probably falls into that category as well. Some people are saying it's a hot seat bowl. And I think that's probably true.
Ooh, there's a phrase not ever heard before. I like that, hot seat bowl. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say as an Auburn grad and somebody that's followed Auburn more closely than most programs, there are a lot of Auburn fans that are pretty much done with Gus. And I mean, when you look at what's happened the last couple of years, they've lost, I think the number is 7 straight Power 5 home games.
Wow.
I mean, that's pretty remarkable because Jordan-Hare is a tough place to play, and to lose that many in a row is, I mean, it's mind-boggling.
There's a fine line sometimes between greatness, mediocrity, winning, losing, all that kind of stuff. If you take away the play on the field goal that resulted in a touchdown, how different is history?
Oh, man. I mean, that season was remarkable, and certainly the last second touchdown against Georgia that was on a tip ball, the play against Alabama.
Right, and just to refresh for anybody, I want to say it was the 10th, next to last game of the season. Auburn's down, long pass, gets deflected, and the Auburn receiver catches it in full stride for what turns out to be a game-winning touchdown. And then the next week, the last week of the season, the Iron Bowl, Alabama tries what would have been a game-winning field goal, right?
Right, yeah.
And instead, it barely makes it to the goalpost. The Auburn player, and I know you know his name,
Chris Davis.
yeah, catches the ball and goes for a touchdown. Changes history, college football history.
They win the SEC title, and that was an undefeated Alabama team at the time.
Yeah.
They win the SEC title that year and then play for a national championship after the year before was a complete and total unmitigated disaster.
Yeah.
3-9. They fire the coach. They bring in Gus Malzahn. They go, 13-2, play for a national title. It's unbelievable. But they have definitely regressed the last couple of years. They barely got into a bowl game last year, and it's a distinct possibility they're going to be 1-3 if LSU goes in there and wins this weekend. That, I think a lot of people have just had enough that this program is not going in the direction that it initially looked like it was under Gus.
And Malzahn was a guy who was extremely beloved by the Auburn people. He had been there, left, and then came back as the head coach.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was this big rallying cry for him to come back, and everybody was so excited because, by all accounts, I guess he's a really nice man.
Yeah, and that offense had been so productive under Cam Newton when they've had a quarterback that they can rely on.
It's funny how that works.
Yeah, absolutely. He had fared well. But I think this is an interesting question, and you see it at Alabama with Lane Kiffin. The guy's a great offensive coordinator, but coordinators are not always great program leaders and not great head coaches. And I think we've seen that with Malzahn, and we've seen certainly with Kiffin. Coordinator abilities don't necessarily translate to being able to be the leader.
Well, it has yet to manifest with Will Muschamp, who is one of the great defensive coordinators, but failed miserably in his first job at Florida. Now, miserably is a little strong, but by Florida standards, and now at South Carolina, prove it to me. And a lot of people in real life and in sports sometimes don't appreciate what they have and what their ceiling is and how good they can be at their job. Lane Kiffin, for one, I know is going to want to be a head coach again.
And he will be.
Yeah, but what a great situation he has in sports working life right now. For example, offensive coordinator for the best program in the land, makes a ton of money. I mean, even if you make more than $1 million, is your life going to change if you make $2 million or $3 million? I have no idea because whatever. But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, and it certainly is inheriting a lot more headaches.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with him the next time. Maybe he was a young head coach.
Yeah.
Prior to
the youngest NFL head coach in history, if memory serves.
Very charismatic guy. There's nothing capability-wise that has prevented him from being successful. I think it was a maturity issue, and if he grows up a little bit, I think he could still be a good head coach. But we have not seen that sustained over long periods of time by any means.
I think of two specific cases, like at LSU. One was John Chavis when he was the defensive coordinator here, who's had opportunities to be a head coach and never has wanted to be a head coach, never tried to be one, and just simply remains one of the great defensive coordinators and extremely highly paid.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I don't think he has the personality to be a head coach.
No, probably not. But then the other one is long before you came here, a guy named Brett Favre was almost ready to miss his senior year in college at Southern Miss, lost his gallbladder in a car accident, came back, played. Southern Miss had a year of years with a couple of big-time upsets. And the coach, Hudson Hallman, nicknamed Curly, because of that season, got the LSU job. And his career has been on a downward spiral ever since. And you never know. If he had stayed at Southern Miss, and he might have been in his 30th year and having the greatest small college career of any coach ever.
Yeah. I think in whatever the profession is, understanding your capabilities and limitations, being satisfied is like it's a juggling act. You don't really know sometimes what your ceiling is, and certainly a lot of times we don't really want to accept what our ceiling is.
Good point. Well, when the mothership calls, David, it's time to move to Bristol and come up here and do something big. You'll be on the way. Hold that thought. He's David Ching. I'm Lee Feinswag. It's Sports 225, and we'll be right back. Oh, hi. I was checking out Yelphi. I do it all the time, all day, because it brings me all the news I need to know in sports. I mean, I've got a customized news feed, real-time scores. It's integrated with Facebook and Twitter. You download it on iTunes, Yelphi, Y-E-L-L-F-Y. It's a great app and a fantastic Twitter feed. Sweet. Yeah, Bristol. We're back on Sports 225, a fast-paced show that you can see not only on Cox 4 CST, but on our Sports 225 TV YouTube channel. Get all the details at sports225.com, and you can see any old show because after they air on the cable stations, they go up on the Sports 225 YouTube channel, and they're archived there. So click, click, click. David Ching is here with me. Third year in Baton Rouge?
Yeah, this is my third season covering LSU.
Yeah. He works for ESPN.com and covers the SEC, LSU in particular. So let's talk about LSU. What a strange 3 football games LSU has had.
Yeah.
So, the Wisconsin game, I think, shocked everybody, including it had to be even Wisconsin. And then the next week at home, in a gimme, it took a really long time. And then last week in the SEC opener against Mississippi State, on the way to a lopsided victory that got very close, I think it was 23-3 and ended up 23-20. And LSU has yet to score in the fourth quarter this season.
Yeah, I still don't know what to make of them.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% there.
I see on paper a team that has every advantage you would want to have. There's NFL level talent at every position on the field. We'll see about quarterback. They certainly have talent to play, but I don't want to go crazy over Danny Etling yet.
That would be a wise move because I think you should definitely let him see how he plays on the road for one.
Yeah, for sure. And he's done it at Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
He's played in Penn State, for instance, which is as big a stadium as pretty much anywhere he would play in the SEC. But certainly expectations here are much greater than whoever is a starting quarterback at Purdue. He's got weapons around him. He certainly has a pretty good one in the backfield in Leonard Fournette, and a defense that I think is getting a little better every week for the most part. I think they're going to be as good or better in the talent department than everybody they play the rest of the way, with the possible exception of Alabama.
Wow.
It's just a matter of putting it all together, and whether they will, I don't know, but the ceiling is still pretty high for this team.
Well, speaking of young Danny Etling, the quarterback, he's a transfer from Purdue, a place which produced a pretty good quarterback, at least one, in Drew Brees. There have been others, though, over the years. And then you pointed out this week that the matchup of quarterbacks will be former Purdue quarterbacks. Kind of interesting. But going on, that's Auburn's quarterback.
No,
Florida's quarterback. That's right. When LSU plays Florida. Thank you. I knew as I was saying it, I was getting it wrong. Thank you. What's the Florida kid's name?
Austin Appleby.
Yeah. Which makes you wonder why quarterbacks don't stay at Purdue and why they don't get better at LSU. Anyway, that's enough. Okay, so anyway, going on the road, it's very tough in college sports, especially in the SEC, and like you said, especially at Auburn. It's a really good environment. This is not the first time we're going to see an LSU quarterback get a start and go on the road at Auburn. It's a tough task.
Yeah, that's what makes that record they've had against Power 5 teams lately so weird to me. Like
Auburn's home record.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
You watch the games, even Texas A&M this past weekend. Texas A&M was clearly the superior team. Auburn's offense was just a mess, and Auburn is still in the game late in the game, largely because its defense is so good, and they still lost the game, as they have to the previous 6 Power 5 teams they played there. But I don't know that it's going to be an easy game for LSU. I think they're going to have to go up there and scratch and claw.
So back to the quarterback thing. So Brandon Harris, of course, was the quarterback, and I made this supposition here last week is that we have this misconception sometimes that because you stay at your position and you get older and you train more and you learn more and you get bigger and stronger that you're going to get better, and it's just not always the case. In the case of this kid, it just hasn't happened, and he seemed like a nice kid who his teammates liked and rallied behind. Yet when Danny Etling came in the game, there was an obvious big rally by his teammates behind him, and a big spark and a whole different mindset. Not forget what the fans were doing, booing, cheering, whatever. This kid may have, Skip Bertman used to say, he might have the mojo.
Yeah, I would say this. He has shown a composure that I think might have been lacking a little bit. He's been able to sense pressure and extend plays by moving around in the pocket or getting out of the pocket. He has been very successful at, when a play breaks down, finding a check down receiver, dumping the ball off to the running back out of the backfield, getting something out of a play.
He's got a real quick arm.
Yeah.
He seems to be able to fling it really quick. In
LSU's offense, they don't need Michael Vick. They don't need a one-man show at quarterback. They just need somebody that can complete 65% of the passes. If they're going to throw it 18, go 12 for 18 for 180 yards. Don't turn the ball over. Be a guy that keeps drives alive and keeps the chains moving, and you'll be very successful. And thus far, that's what he looks like. And people don't like game manager labels in some cases. That's all LSU needs, and thus far, that's what Danny Etling looks like. And that's been exactly what they needed.
We only got a little bit of time left, but you said a magic word that I want to ask you about when we get back, and that was turnovers. He's David Ching from ESPN.com. I'm Lee Feinswag, and it's Sports 225.
It was nearly a decade ago that Brett teamed up to Imagine Your Parks, and you imagine big. 12 beautiful community parks from one end of the parish to the other, one family-sized water park, and 5 other parks just for your dogs. You have places to splash and places to explore. You have games to play and camps galore. No matter what you like to do or see, visit Breck.org and see how together we have made Breck better than imagined.
All right, another Sports 225, almost finished. John Williams from JCW Productions is the director of today's show. Go to jcwproductions.com for anything digital, from websites to video production to branding to you name it. And don't forget, you can go to sports225.com for all the listings of when this show is on Cox 4, CST, and then see old shows and this show on our Sports 225 YouTube channel. Whew. So you mentioned turnovers, and I said I was going to bring that back up. So that's been one thing that Les Miles has had zero tolerance for, running backs who fumble. Until it became Leonard Fournette who fumbled. He wasn't about to get benched, was he?
No, that's not happening. And, you know, Les has made the point a couple of times, and I think you do have to give Leonard some leeway. You're talking about a guy that missed a portion of practice in August. He missed practice time lately. He missed the Jacksonville State game with that injury. He's just a little rusty.
Plus, he gets hit harder and more often than most guys.
In general, we don't expect to see Leonard lose many fumbles because he just doesn't. Mm-hmm. You have to kind of view this, I think, as an anomaly, and that as he kind of gets back into the swing of things, that's not something that will happen with any regularity. Yeah.
No, I mean, the kid's really good, and having, for the 2 games he's played, really nice effort. I still don't understand some things. I mean, it's first down, you're inside around the 30. Don't get tricky. Just hand him the ball. Figure out some way. Left, middle, whatever. Hand him the ball.
Yeah, I think you get put into a weird position at this point at LSU because people want you to do creative things. And then you do something creative, and it's like, well, why do you have Fournette in the backfield? Why didn't you just give him the ball?
Exactly.
I wouldn't want Cameron's job right now.
No, if that's for sure. What's your Twitter handle?
ESPN Ching.
ESPN Ching, Ching. You can follow his stuff there. He links to everything at Twitter. You go to ESPN.com, look for the SEC blog. All right, you got 15 seconds to tell me LSU's final record right now at 2-1.
I'll go 10-2.
Wow,
that's ambitious. 9-3, 8-4 are still possibilities, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt for right now.
That's a good finish. The SEC currently has 6 3-0 teams, 6 1-2 teams in a weird season. David Ching, read his stuff and spread the word about Sports 225. Thank you for watching. Good night.
At carnival time by Baton Rouge Bay, that's the site of my story. At Spanish Town Mardi Gras, things can get blurry. See the mowers marching, prizes fill the sky. This Spanish Town Mardi Gras, may it never die. Poetry was everywhere, sweet music filled the air, and just then she glanced my way next to Baton Rouge Bay.